Revolutionary is the word Korean-American actor Chou used to describe his casting as a romantic lead in the short-lived sitcom Selfie. And Chou wasn't exaggerating. With few exceptions, Hollywood has historically portrayed East Asian men as either desexualized nerds, desexualized kung fu fighters, or desexualized villains. Notice any patterns here? Quick note, while this racial emasculation can apply to men of any Asian descent, in this video I'm going to be focusing on how anti-Chinese and Japanese sentiment in particular fueled this broad sweeping and ethnicity erasing stereotype in American pop culture. 16 Candles is Long Duck Dong epitomizes this caricature of the sexually undesirable, nerdy, and unattractively foreign Asian dude. But long before 1984, government immigration policies planted seeds of prejudice that this stereotype has grown from for more than a century. Starting in the 1840s, America saw an influx of male Chinese immigrants. And until 1882, with the passage of the Chinese Exclusion Act, free immigration policies welcomed with open arms thousands of Chinese laborers, particularly to the Gold Rush era West Coast. With Congress breathing down its neck to complete the Transcontinental Railroad, the Central Pacific Railroad Company began hiring more and more crews of dependable, efficient Chinese men on the cheap. Cue economic and racialized white panic that these suddenly sinister foreigners were coming in to steal all the jobs and all the women. As a result, by World War II, the US government had passed policies explicitly excluding Chinese immigrants from obtaining US citizenship, blocking additional Chinese immigrants from entering the country, and requiring the government registration of all Chinese laborers in the US, not to mention anti-miscegenation laws that prohibited whites from marrying people of color and stripped any woman of her citizenship if she married a man, quote, ineligible for US citizenship, i.e., Chinese dudes, and further immigration restrictions preventing Chinese women, including immigrant men's wives, from entering the country. In other words, the government practically drained the legally sanctioned dating pool. Adding further fuel to the effeminate Asian male stereotype, there was a large enough shortage of women in the Wild West era California that Chinese men fled more male-dominated jobs where they were likelier to possibly face violence perpetrated by their white co-workers, and went into more typically feminine jobs like being cooks, waiters, tailors, and launderers. Is that how you say it? Chinese-owned laundries proliferated strategically to provide self-employment in safer, autonomous environments. Meanwhile, this anti-Asian anxiety and cultural castration turned into box office gold in the 1920s with the debuts of both Dr. Fu Manchu and Charlie Chan. Fu Manchu is kind of like an old-school Mr. Chou in The Hangover, only way more sadistic, and really hooked on opium. And the brilliant megalomaniac's goal? To overthrow the West and impregnate white women in order to breed a super race. Honolulu detective Charlie Chan was far more beloved, sure, but his broken English, fortune cookie-ish aphorisms, and straight up yellow face weren't exactly an improvement. Once the US allied with China during World War II, the mistrust and stereotyping simply shifted focus to Japan. And in Hollywood, Charlie Chan gave way to another yellow-faced detective, this time the Japanese Mr. Moto. And if we hop-skip over the Korean and Vietnam Wars, which only reinforced this legacy of racial othering, as well as the kung fu heyday of the 1970s, we arrive in the 1980s when Japan's economy is soaring, and its auto industry is putting US car manufacturers out of work, not to mention a book called Japan is Number One, Lessons for America was an angst-inducing bestseller. Goodbye bumbling detectives and mystical ninjas without love interests, and hello hapless nerds with tiny penises. So with white America yet again grappling with the prospect of economic disempowerment, the stereotype of the sexless Asian nerd presented the polar opposite of the white masculine ideal of the buff, sports-playing, popular guy with a hot girlfriend.
Math club!
Yeah?
I'm Asian. You guys Asian? It's pretty racist, man.
Pop culturally subordinated as forever foreigners, Asian men were effectively denied full access to American manhood and its social privileges. And this neutered representation has also fed into the model minority mythology because according to the stereotype, they can't possibly possess any sex appeal to white women. So yeah, it was pretty revolutionary when Chou was cast as the lead in Selfie. And yeah, it's even revolutionary that Glenn in The Walking Dead exists, or that Fresh Off the Boat exists. But before we start patting ourselves on our little progressive backs, just stop and consider how revolutionary today still just equals representing people as people and not punchlines.